What you are looking at now is called a carousel. Basically, it's a window that switches images. Creating a working carousel requires help from JavaScript or jQuery, but today we'll only focus on the HTML and CSS parts. In our previous lessons, we've challenged your skills by asking you to move a div to the center of the browser using two different methods. In this lesson, you'll need knowledge learned from that lesson. Therefore, a review is recommended. First, let's do a project analysis so that we can have a clear idea of what we should do. At first glance, the carousel is made up of three parts: the image and two buttons. The two buttons are displayed on top of the image. As a front-end programmer, you should be able to see the invisible part. The invisible part here is the parent div, housing the image and two buttons. The challenge is how to locate the two buttons. In the future, whenever you see similar situations, the most likely solution will usually be absolute position. This is our coding design. First, we create a parent div and put both the image and the two buttons into it. The size of the parent div is the same as the image. Therefore, its vertical center will overlap the image's vertical center. Then we set the two buttons to absolute position and the parent div to relative position. The parent div is now the reference object of the two buttons. In the end, we move the two buttons to the vertical center of the parent div using top 50% and margin top minus their half height. Take a photo of this guideline. You might find it useful when writing the codes yourself. So now, let's start coding. First, we display the image. When you are using images on your web page, always make sure you know its exact width and height. Then we wrap the image using a div. This div will be used as the parent div. In CSS, we set the div to the same size as the image. To make the program easier to understand, we add a temporary border to the div. Next, we create the two buttons. There are many ways to create the button, but for now, we use the simplest solution: image. But remember, the two buttons should be placed inside the parent div. We then assign a class to each button. The buttons are now ready. Next, we move them to the right location. First, we set the parent div to relative position, so that it's qualified to work as the reference object. Then we select the left button. The size of the button is 80 by 80. As an extra safety net, we set the size again in CSS. Then we set the button's position to absolute. Next, we move the button's top border, the vertical center of the parent div, using top 50%. Then we make the final lift using margin top. The value should be half the button's height. Also, don't forget the minus sign. And now, the left button has been moved to the desired location. Using the same method, we relocate the right button. We just need to switch left 15 pixel into right 15 pixel. This program is a very typical application of absolute position. Compared with other methods, using absolute position can make our code concise and clear. Our job will also be much easier when adding JavaScript or jQuery to the program.